All right, good evening, everyone. I'm 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins, and that is Lou Turner, Chief Meteorologist at WTLV in Jacksonville. And Lou, it's going to rain.
Bobby, we got rain coming, my friend. I want to take us a little inside the business, a little ITB this evening. Bobby and I actually were talking at 9 o'clock this morning, not on TV, not on stream, but we had a little meeting and we were having a little powwow. So I asked, since 9 o'clock, 6:30 p.m., and as we stream through the evening, we're doing this a little through the evening. Has anything changed, in your opinion, since we were talking earlier this morning?
Great question, Lou. No, not a lot, to be honest with you. What we noticed this morning when we woke up was we're watching for this possible tropical development here. Let me pop that up here. This is from the Hurricane Center. And they raised it yesterday, late yesterday, up from 20% up to 30%. It's still in the low category, but they also kind of shifted it to the east a little bit, less in the Gulf of Mexico and more so out into the Atlantic. And so we look at the individual model runs, the GFS, the European more than anything else, I think, even the Canadian. But we also look at something that's called ensembles, and that's basically running the one model like the European 31 different times. Okay, and they tweak little differences in the beginning of the model and weight things a different way. And then what that results in is a little bit better idea of what the model's thinking altogether. And we call those ensembles. And when we looked at those this morning, and Lou, when we looked at them this afternoon, especially say the European model, which is a little bit more reliable at this particular time, it's starting to say that, yeah, there could be something small developing out here east of Florida by late Friday night, Saturday into Sunday timeframe, and just really slow drifting, not really much there. And so for the development part, the tropical part of this particular weather phenomenon that we're talking about here, that's over the weekend, and it's kind of small at this time.
Yeah, so here in Jacksonville, Bobby, I know there in Tampa, the weather impact alert that we had originally put out, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I know a lot of folks here around Northeast Florida will have seen that and think, oh, well, is this directly because of some sort of tropical formation? And we're noticing that timing, maybe Saturday, Sunday, if anything were to develop, that's more likely. The rains that we're going to see here in our area, while definitely the tropical moisture, it will drive it, not necessarily directly related to any sort of system. So I want folks to kind of ease their minds with that and thinking about 4th of July as well. We're getting a little more optimistic, at least on this side of the state. But, with the setup that you're showing with the ensemble modeling, and I tend to just, after a couple of years of seeing these fronts, now it's typically in a different time of the year. Bobby, we've seen these fronts that'll stall out Northeast Florida, Central Florida, and they go stationary, and you get those battle of winds, air masses, and this will be sometimes when we see those early or pre-hurricane season spin-ups. Sometimes we've had these happen in May where you get something tropical or subtropical that ultimately develops, and you get an early name. And that'll happen a lot with a situation like this. Getting this kind of the first week in July, that's kind of interesting. But nonetheless, when you see this, I always tend to focus on the Gulf Stream, that river of warmer water that runs south to north through the Atlantic, and think about the instability that can create. And then when you see thunderstorms pop over that plus a front, you certainly could get something going. And when we say something, Bobby, I know you think depression, you think on the maybe even worst case scenario, maybe a tropical storm.
Yeah, and we haven't seen much in the way of the modeling suggests anything of a tropical storm. In fact, the European model just did come out and gave it less than about a 20% chance of a tropical storm, but about a 30 to 40% chance of a tropical depression to form, and it's saying mainly out here. So this is what Lou was talking about. You get an old frontal boundary at the beginning of the season, or even in the fall. This can happen in November, even potentially in December. Usually the water is too cool by that time. But you watch the back end of this, because what happens is you end up getting wind coming in one direction on that side of the front, one direction, and then you get wind with a high pressure coming in behind the front like this. All right, and if you get a low to form in here, look what you get. You get that counterclockwise flow. So that alone is something that we'll watch for. But you'll notice that this model doesn't do too much. This is Saturday, July the 5th at 9 p.m. We're kind of looking at that point out here because you can kind of notice, Lou, initially you guys are going to have offshore winds up there in Jacksonville from the southwest to the northeast. So it's a southwest wind. But
Yes.
by Saturday, that wind's starting to turn around a little bit, and that's because this front went through, right? And then what does that low want to do?
Exactly. And so, looking at that euro and looking at those winds wrapping around, I could see how a model may start to kind of key in on that as sort of a kink, a kind of a bend in the front, indicating some lowering pressure, indicating the spin. I think our local impacts as we get kind of into Saturday, Sunday, you get the northeast wind shift. That'll impact our, folks who are trying, maybe not in the widespread rain worry or concern, but, our intracoastal waterways, our saltwater fed waterways here, tidal. I'm not seeing too many higher than normal tides right now, but for folks who live along the marshes, the intracoastal, those fortunate enough, you got the dock in the yard, you got the floating dock, you might notice maybe a little bit higher than what you're used to. Now, a lot of times here when we get the several days of a northeast wind, and we'd call it our own modified version of a nor'easter here, obviously not what they see in New England, but you get the stacking of the water, and that St. Johns River, of course, one of the few that runs south to north, and then as you get closer to downtown Jacksonville through Clay County, it's tidally impacted as well. So the overall flow is south to north on the lower levels of the river, but when you get that stacking of water at the mouth of the St. Johns River in Mayport, kind of coming out of the northeast, then that can impact how much a tide can empty. So how low the tide is, you get higher than normal lows and a little bit higher than normal highs as well, and that can last for a day or two's worth of tidal cycles. So we'll watch that Saturday, Sunday, but again, it's not one of those things I'm overly concerned with at this point, considering what you had mentioned just before that is those southwest winds that we're going to have and continue to have here over the next several days and really until we get to the weekend.
And so one thing that has changed from this morning is that I did notice on the European model, they ended up with 25 to almost 30 knots, low 30 knots of wind out here out of the northeast, parallel in the Carolina coastline. That's something new. That's an afternoon run, and that's something that you will really be paying attention to for those higher tides if that happens. And I think that was Saturday into Sunday. So we'll see. Although I did see it really fall apart quickly Sunday into Monday. So even if that does happen, we'll have to see if it holds together. There's a lot of wind shear up above this area of the Carolina coastline into Georgia and over that southeastern part, the Atlantic, right, just off the southeast coast. And that makes it hard for tropical systems to form. The more it can form, the more of that wind we'd be talking about. If it's getting sheared apart from that wind shear, it's going to have a tough time to stay together and get strong. And that's what we want. We don't want a whole lot of wind with this. Let's talk a little bit about the moisture, because that's more than anything else, I think, what we're going to get out of this. The darker greens here on this precipitable water are showing some pretty high numbers. And I've got the number in the upper right-hand corner for the Tampa Bay area, but I got to say that looks very similar for both Tampa and Jacksonville. And this is on Wednesday, where you've got numbers over 2 inches. But you can see the darker greens here on the map. What this is in the summertime around here, we talk about our rainy season, when that number gets to 1.7 or so, or a little bit higher, and you have humidity down here, high dew points, and you get hot, we get afternoon showers and thunderstorms to develop. That's enough moisture from the ground all the way up so that it's not run into a bunch of dry air and it can make thunderstorms. When that number gets over 2 inches, you start talking about some pretty good moisture. Watch what happens. Well, let me back up here. That was about 2.3 inches of rain right there of PW for Thursday morning in the Tampa area. So bottom line, what that's saying is that there is a ton of moisture, that dark green you see over Florida from southeast Georgia all the way down to almost to Marco Island. And that is one of the main reasons why we have our weather impact alert. It's to cover for those afternoon storms that pop up and produce 2-3 inches of rainfall at a time because of some of the heavier downpours that may train over the area. Now, the 4th of July forecast, and Louie, you're going to be a little bit luckier for this. Let me back up here a little bit. This is Friday, 7 p.m., and you can see that nose of drier air getting in there into Jacksonville. So a better chance for some drier conditions for you.
I spent the evening broadcast. The first question, the anchors had for me was, what's going on with this yellow blob? And then I could get 4 words out of my mouth before. Yeah, but what about 4th of July? Of course that's, and me too. I got 2 young kids at the house who I'm not going to light fireworks because I've got a cul-de-sac full of amateur professionals who are going to be doing that for me. So I'll watch them light some money on fire and enjoy the entertainment. 100%. Listen, I have seen a bottle rocket go into pine straw and go up like that. Yeah. So we will have the hose ready, but it's looking better here Friday night. We're getting more and more optimistic, more and more confidence of it. The sun's going to go down. We're going to lose that daytime heating. By the time it's 8, 9 o'clock when they're starting to fire those things off, looking a lot better. But you mentioned the PWATS. I was looking at the sounding in Jacksonville. You get that we're going to see that 2-inch potential even tomorrow. So Wednesday, Thursday, that flash flood potential here for town or parts of town like San Marco, Riverside, susceptible downtown, those areas that are susceptible to street flooding that we've seen cars flooded out already Sunday and Monday even. So I'm going to be watching that very carefully for Wednesday and even into Thursday just because of all of that tropical moisture Bobby was just showing us.
Yep. And I think what we'll end up getting is flood advisories. Those are these small areas of a warning area where a lot of rainfall has fallen, say 2-3 inches, and the local weather service office will issue those. They'll last about an hour and a half till that water drains off. We may end up getting flood watches for portions of the state, including the Tampa area and Jacksonville, at least initially tomorrow and Thursday. We'll have to see how that plans out. But just because we have so much moisture and the potential there, a watch would mean that we have the potential to see some minor flooding. A flood advisory means we are seeing flooding at that time. Some of the rainfall totals, I'll pop this up there for most of the state. And Lou, obviously it looks like the West Coast will see more than anybody else. And that would be really through Sunday more than anything else. But these kind of forecasts change a little bit just because the weather will change. We just do think we'll see a little bit more rainfall on the west coast of Florida than the northeast coast.
Yeah, and a lot of times, so for Northeast Florida, we're seeing that half-inch, inch and a half total through but this is an average over that entire area. And we got to keep in mind, at a point, you get underneath one of these storms that may be a little bit more slow-moving, a 3-4 inch event in an isolated part of town here in Northeast Florida, we cannot rule that out. So, of course, want you very aware of the ponding, the street flooding, and obviously we've seen folks driving into it and having some real problems.
Yeah, turn around, don't drown. Stay tuned to us, guys. We will keep you updated right here on our Plus streaming apps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lou.
Hey, Bobby, I don't know. It's obviously an issue on our end. I'll have to get it fixed. I couldn't see you or graphics at all. I just saw my own face the whole time. Oh. No, not once. So I was trusting your lead and just going, but I don't think anybody will notice.